Good afternoon to my listening audience. You are tuned into the best radio talk show out there for women. You're listening to Woman, and I am your host for today, Chrishna Bowe. Just to give you a little background on me, I'm a local author here on the island. Just recently published a book called Woman, We've Been Duped. And you can find this book in your local bookstores, Bethel's bookstore. If you're in Nassau, you can go to Logos. And if you're an internet guru, you can download it off of Amazon.com or BarnesandNobles.com. And here at Woman, we have just created this show to create an outlet for women to just openly really empower one another, to share our ideas, to discuss the issues that we women face, and to ultimately inspire one another to live a life of peace, fulfillment, and happiness. So that is our mandate. Woman is here to provide yet another pathway for freedom for the women of Grand Bahama, and we hope that we're doing that with all of the information that we have been giving you over the past couple of months that we've been on air. Now, today, we're going to be talking about something that we've started already, and it's one of those famous New Year's resolutions that we like to make. And this is the resolution that says, I'm going to do better with my money, I'm going to get out of debt, or I want to get out of debt. And, we have so many money resolutions that we never are able to keep, or for whatever reason, it seems like we're never able to keep those resolutions. And what we've decided to do is really come to you with some practical ideas as to how you can do that. Last week, Pastor Cedric Beckles was on, and he discussed God's view on money, how we should view our money, or I should say God's money, and exactly what the Bible has to say about, tithing, offerings, and the way we actually run our money and our finances as a whole. Now, today we're going to look at the practical side of things. Now that you know what God has to say, we want to give you some practical information and some principles that you can apply to try and slowly dig yourself out of that hole. We're not offering any quick fix solutions here, but we're trying to be really real. Woman to Woman is all about keeping it real. And we're hoping that our guest who's in studio with us today will be able to impart that information. Now, before I introduce this person who is so knowledgeable in this field of finances, I just want to say a shout out to my faithful sponsor, Simply the best multimedia company ever. So, I'm happy that Simply the Best believes in what we're doing and continues to support us. If you're looking for your videos to be produced, your commercials to be produced, anything, if you want to convert those old VHS tapes, Simply the Best over there in the Mayport building. Telephone number 351-6519 is the place to go. And I just want to extend an invitation to any of you prospective sponsors that may be tuned in. I know that we've gotten a lot of great feedback on the streets of Grand Bahama. A lot of you are enjoying the show. But for us to keep up with the show, we need some good old cash, some sponsorship. So if you're interested in really partnering with us to continue to empower our local women, I implore you to contact me and become a sponsor of the Woman to Woman show, okay? Now, today we have in studio with us I'm calling him Elder Ellison Delva. And even though Mr. Delva is an elder at the Church of Christ, he is a husband and a father. He's here in the capacity of a financial advisor. And we like to have financial advisors who are in the faith, those of us that are believers, because for us, we want to give that type of perspective, and we want to look at everything ultimately from what God has to say, So, Mr. Delva is a partner at Cates & Co. and has been a partner with them for the last 17 years. Wow. He's also a certified public accountant, and he is a member of the Florida Institute of Chartered Accountants and also a member of the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants. So he has a very, very lengthy resume, very, very familiar with the financial aspects of, the whole gamut of accounting and what we need to do and what we don't need to do. So we have our numbers man in the studio with us today, okay? So without further ado, we're going to just pound Mr. Delva for some information because, listen, people, I need it as much as you do. So I've asked Mr. Delva to just impart to us some key information that can help those of us better our financial situation who are really willing and open to it. Now, just to kick things off, so good afternoon, Mr. Delva.
Good afternoon, Ms. Bowe, and good afternoon to you, our listening audience.
Yes, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon.
Good to be here.
And I'm going to run out the gates by asking you, because I know one of the biggest issues a lot of us have is we've built up too much debt. So when New Year's rolled around, we kind of try to figure out to ourselves, this year I'm going to get out of debt, or this year I'm going to reduce my debt. And what I'd like to know is, what are your top suggestions for how we can get out of debt? Or I know it's not an overnight process, so maybe how we can reduce our debt and work toward eventually getting out of debt.
Thank you, Ms. Bowe.
Thank you.
Excellent question. When we look at the Bahamian populace, when it comes to financing or finances, debt is certainly a troubling matter.
Yes.
We have too much debt, whether it's bank loans, whether it's credit cards. We take on too much debt. And what I feel is the key for us in terms of reducing our debt, one, we need to look at our own individual personal finances. A lot of times you hear people talk about this synonym or this talk about Bahamians trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
You see, a lot of folks get themselves into trouble, especially with debt, because they take on debt, but they don't take on debt in relation to their own personal finances, their personal resources.
Right.
They take on debt because they're trying to compete. Maybe their neighbor, their coworker.
Right. They want that nice new car.
Yes.
That they cannot afford.
Yes. Or that big house.
That they cannot afford. Can't even afford to maintain it.
Exactly. And they take on mortgages that causes them, in essence, I've seen situations where some folks, 75% of their salary is basically mortgaged to the bank by way of bank loans. That's too much debt.
Right.
In terms of a threshold, I would say to any individual out there, if you're paying more than 50% of your take-home pay in loans, that's too much debt. The threshold is usually 40%, no more than that.
Wow.
So if you have more than 50%.
So if you're making $1,000,
Yes.
Mr. Delva, if you're making $1,000, really you should be, and this includes credit cards?
Yes.
Okay, you should be paying in debts no more than $400
No more
or
than $400.
$450 a month.
No more than that.
Wow.
No more than that. But just think about it, Ms. Bowe. If you're making $1,000
Right.
and you have $400 plus dollars in debt, when you think about the other bills, either the rent or the mortgage, the light bill, where's the money coming from?
Right,
You
right.
see?
Yes.
Yes. So that's the problem, and that's the problem, and that's a key problem why we can't save, because there's no money left to save.
Right.
And
in
that's the
in
problem.
fact, we're making $1,000, but our debts and our utilities and all of our other bills are $1,500 or $2,000.
Yes, exactly. And so we're basically barely living from paycheck to paycheck.
Wow. Yeah, that is interesting. Now, I want you to touch bases because I think that this is what a lot of us don't realize. That I want you to talk more about credit cards, too, how we get into credit card debt and the bank loans. I want you to talk about the percentages, the fees, just give people, because I don't think some people even read the fine print, and they don't realize you borrow, $1,000, you pay the bank how much back?
$1,500. It depends on how long the term is. And see, that's the key, too. When most Bahamians go into the bank for a bank loan, as you said, they do not read the fine prints.
Right.
And at the same time, all they want to know is when I'm getting my money. But you see, there are some things that affect your payment. All right?
Right.
One is the interest.
Right.
All right? And also the term. All right?
Right.
The longer the term, the more interest you're going to pay.
Right.
Okay? And so a lot of times, without fully understanding, folks opt for the longer term, but they fail to realize that in the end, that payment is going to be quite a bit. For example, I've known individuals, back in the day, they went to the bank for a $30,000 mortgage for the home, but that $30,000 ended up with them paying over $100,000 because the term they decided to pay that mortgage over a 30-year period.
Okay, so Mr. Delva, let me break this down just in case y'all are not understanding what he's saying. You are paying the bank back three times from what my calculation is saying. 3 times what you're borrowing. So you borrow $30,000 and you pay back $100. Man, that's criminal.
Yes. But you see, as far as you looking at it, you say, well, I have a small payment, but it's 30 years.
Wow.
If, on the other hand, you pay back more. If you reduce the term, at least you would save quite a bit in the interest. And then
So
the
if
thing
we're
about
gonna
it,
so if we're gonna take out a loan or even a mortgage, it's really good to consider taking it out for a shorter
Shorter
term
period,
as
yes.
possible. So as opposed to a 25-year mortgage, maybe we can go to 10.
yes,
Payments will be higher, but we will pay a lot less in the
interest.
long run.
Yes.
Wow.
I normally use a threshold if you have to, no more than 15 years. Anytime you're going over 15 years, you're going to pay a lot in interest.
Yes.
But 10 years is the ideal term. And again, that's why when you think about taking on debt, you have to look at your personal resources, look at your personal finances. You know, I always said to folks, you know, if you're making a bank payment, and for the fact that you maybe get a raise during the time, you know, take that extra and pay it on the mortgage. It's going to reduce the amount of interest
Right.
you're paying on
And
that loan.
certainly, I can attest to that because that is something that we do, and it makes a big difference because they're charging you interest on your declining balance,
Yes.
right? Wow! But even if you can't understand all of that stuff, just understand this as short a term as possible.
Yes.
Now with the credit cards, people say, "Oh, I'm just paying a little bit." $50, $20. So why can't I have my credit cards?
Well, the thing about it is when you're paying $10 and $15, those balances never get paid off because basically
Never.
all you're doing is paying interest. And with credit cards, let me make a point about that. You know, a lot of times you talk to some folks and they brag about how many credit cards they have,
Right.
particularly cards from department stores. I recommend that an individual have no more than 2 credit cards, especially if you have major credit cards. If you have a Visa or an American Express, you don't need any other card. You don't need any these departmental credit cards again that you just pay the $5 and the $10.
Oh, right.
It just you never pay those balances off.
Right.
And I also let me make a good point for folks to think about with your credit card. You know, there's a way how you can use your credit card to your advantage. I'll give you an example for myself. I have an American Express card, and I use that card to my advantage. And the way I do it is this: my card has a cutoff date. My
Right.
cutoff date is the 27th of each month.
Right.
And usually after that cutoff date, I have almost a 30-day window before I make that payment.
Right.
So what I would do to kind of give me almost 2 months, what I would do is the very first day after my cutoff. So I would go ahead and use my card on the 28th. So all during that month, all right, I have time. And then when it cut off the following month, I still have another 30 days before the payment is due.
Wow.
All right. So what you do
Okay.
is you just look at your cutoff date. See, because
Cutoff
if,
date,
for
okay.
example, if I had made
And
that
that'll be
purchase
on your statement.
yes, because if I had made that purchase on the 26th, that's one day before my cutoff. So the payment will be due in the month. You follow? So
Yes,
you just go
yes, I
one
do
day
follow.
after. So you give yourself almost a 2-month,
A 2-month window
Yes.
to pay the bill.
especially with American Express, because you know you have to pay that balance off in
In
full.
full.
Yes.
Right. Wow. I understand it. There was something I had. I lost my train of thought as you were speaking about credit cards. Oh, the thing is, right, I know my husband, one of his sisters, listen, and I'm amazed at this. She's almost 50 years old, and she has never had a credit card. Not that she couldn't get one. That is just what she chose to do because she said if she can't pay for something cash, she's not buying it.
Okay.
And up to today, she's very, very serious about it. I'm actually really impressed. And the thing is, I look at the way she lives, and she lives very well. Like financially, she really has her finances in order. And she says, you know, she never believed in it because all it does is rack up further debt for you. And if she cannot get it in cash, she doesn't get it.
Okay. I know some folks like that now, and that's fine. And I believe, based on what you said, she's very disciplined.
Yes.
But credit card is not a bad thing. But the key with a credit card, you have to be disciplined. Because take, for example, you might go to the U.S. to purchase some stuff, and you see something that you really need. You run out of cash. That's
Right.
where the credit card comes in. But before you charge that card, again, you must look at your personal finances. All right? And so don't put more on that card that you can afford.
Right.
All right, but that
I
credit
think
card
for a
can be
lot
used
of
in
us,
emergency
Mr. Delva,
purposes.
I think
Yes.
a lot of us are not disciplined.
that's the
I
problem.
think the disciplined folk are in the minority. So if for those of you listening to me, chances are, just saying, you're probably not one of the disciplined ones. Now, what I like is the fact that a lot of the banks finally over here, the local banks, have now given debit cards. So I would say too, you know, if you know that you have no type of control with your spending, just get rid of the credit card and you can actually use the debit card because the debit card allows you to just take monies off of your account. So you can't spend
More than you have.
more than you have.
Yes.
So I have actually, that's one of the things that I've been trying to do. I've been really using my debit card most times in place of my credit card.
Okay.
And that has been working to help me, prevent myself from getting into debt.
Okay.
So some of us, we may have to just cut up those credit cards. It's that extreme. So I think that's another thing that.
Well, if you have to do that, I recommend you do that. All right. If you have no control, no discipline, yes, cut those cards up because it will get you into trouble and will keep you always in debt.
Wow. Now, another thing I wanted to ask you, see, this time is going so quickly, is, anyway, let's take a quick break. We'll take a 30-second break, and then we'll come back and deal with ways in which we can develop a savings habit. You are tuned into Woman to Woman. Welcome back. We just came from a short break, and today we have with us in studio Mr. Ellison Delva, who is a certified public accountant here in Grand Bahama and has been a partner in his firm for the last 17 years. And we have really been talking about how do we get out of debt. He gave us some good information. And one of the things I just wanted to reiterate in case you're just tuning in is, listen, we are going to end up paying some 3 times the amount that we would have borrowed if we take out loans that are very, lengthy. So his recommendation is if you are going to even take out a mortgage, if you can do a 10, 15-year term, you will spend a lot less. All right. Now, I was just about to ask Mr. Delva, how can we, what are some ways, some tips that we can develop that can help us to develop a great savings habit?
Good question, Ms. Bowe. And I think that's very timely because one thing that caught me by surprise was recently I learned that I believe it was Central Bank. They did a statistic, and they did it on Bahamians and savings. And one thing that was noted, which is very frightening, they said that 80 to 90% of Bahamians have less than $1,000 total in savings. That's scary.
That is scary.
Can you imagine working for 10, 15, 20 years, and all you have in the bank is $1,000?
Wow.
One accident, one health issue, we're in problems, all right? And so can you imagine somebody, again, who is almost to the age of retirement with barely $1,000 in the bank? And think about the fact that many companies in the Bahamas do not have a pension plan.
Right.
So all we're left now to rely on is national insurance. One of the things I try to encourage folks, especially those who take out a mortgage, and the reason why I encourage the 10 to 15 year is because by the time you retire, you should not have a mortgage.
Right.
Because if you have a mortgage at retirement, you're in trouble. All right.
Right.
Because again, if you work for a company that doesn't provide a pension plan,
how are you going to pay the mortgage?
Exactly. And we talk about savings. And so
wow.
You also have to think about that. And so that's why I tell folks, no matter how much you make, you need to develop a savings plan. I do a seminar, I call it the ABCs of financial planning. So if we're going to develop a habit of savings, for one, you have to plan it. All right? Savings is not going to happen by accident.
Which is what we want our listeners to do today. We're planning it. We're putting these practical suggestions into play.
Okay? So yes, you got to plan. All right? And then after you make this plan, you got to go ahead and set a budget. Bahamians don't like to budget. All right? They say, well, for the most part, they say, well, I don't have nothing to budget. I don't make enough. No matter how much you make, you can budget. And the reason why you need to budget is because in order for you to be able to see where you're headed, you got to see where you've been. And I always say to folks, take a little book. I use a simple example. Take a book. If I ask anyone in the listening audience, or I ask, say you, Ms. Bowe, how much money do you spend a month on gasoline? Do you know?
Me?
Yeah.
I think I have an idea.
So you think you have an idea?
I have an idea.
You have an idea. Or I say, how much money do you spend a month on grocery? You probably have an idea.
I have an idea.
Have an idea. And we do have an idea. But what I say to folks, I said, just use this as an example. Take a black and white book. Every time you go to the gas station, every time you go to the food store, even the convenience store, you get your receipt and you just write that amount down, just for the month. And then add it up at the end of the month. And if you're shocked by it, then you see, well, hey, you'll be saying, you mean I spent all that for gas?
Right.
So now you have something to gauge by. And if that is $100, you might say, that's too much. So then what you're going to do, you're going to limit the amount of times you go to the convenience store.
Right.
Because that's gas. All right? So let's think of someone who may be living over the bridge.
Right,
All right?
right.
And you run out of something. Okay? So if you know you spend all this money in gasoline or
Do
all
it
this
out
money,
until the next day.
Exactly. Yeah. But you see, if you don't keep a record, even like, for example, I don't have a postpaid phone card. A lot of folks have maybe the prepaid, and we just go and we buy a phone card. A $5 phone card,
Right,
a $10
right.
phone card. I mean, it feels like it's a small amount.
Right.
All right? But if you record every time you buy that $5 phone card and you add it up for the month, you may be surprised.
And this is how we're just not keeping any money in. Because I think that is just a human thing, man. Whenever money's in your purse or whatever, it just seems to get spent.
Yes.
I don't know how that works.
We as babies, we love to spend money.
Yeah.
Once we have money, we feel as if we
I
have
don't
to
know.
spend
and then,
it.
And I think it's there.
Yep.
So, but okay, give me an example. Like if I make $1,000 a month, right? I like to give practical examples, right? How much of that do you think realistically I should aim to save?
I say realistically, you should aim to save 5%. Because, a lot of times
So
folks say
5% is what, $50?
$50, yeah. But,
Okay.
$50 a month amounts to $600. And remember the statistic I mentioned. If
That's $600 for the year.
Exactly. But just
Right.
think about it. Over a 10-year period, all right, that's $6,000.
Right.
And if right now the average savings of
Right.
Bahamians is less than $1,000.
So you would have already capped that.
Exactly.
Okay, so 5%.
At least 5%,
At
yes.
least
At least
5%.
5%.
Because, I'm concerned about the economy in Freeport, and I know that a lot of us are having a rough ride right now.
Yes.
So that's why I asked, because some of us are finding it very difficult to save anything.
Exactly. Yes.
So what do you do when you can't save anything? You just don't save it.
But try to save something. Even if you can't save 5%, even if it's 2.5%, because again, at the end of the year, that's $300. Because one of the things that we don't plan for, and I call it the big U, and that's the unknown.
Yes.
All right, and you need to have funds sometimes for the unknown. All right, when I'm doing my budget, I don't plan for the car to break down, but it does.
Right.
Right? I don't plan for the children to get sick, but they
But
do.
they do.
Okay.
Right.
And so when the unknown shows up, where's the money
Right.
coming from?
Right.
So that's
Right.
why you have to try your best. All right. And see, that's what
Right.
frustrates people most of the times. When the unknown strikes and there's nothing to deal with it. That's why
Right.
you have to try to save as little as you can, even if you cut back. For example, a lot of times folks, we like to eat big lunch, $5, $10. Sometimes bring a sandwich.
Right.
Save that money. You'd be
Right.
surprised.
Right.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, there's some of the things I would like. You have any more tips like that? I like those that type of,
Yeah.
So people bring your sandwich.
Yes. Yes.
But Mama used to say a belly full is a belly full.
That's it. All right. Sometimes we cook big dinner at home. Bring some of that to lunch. For lunch.
Right.
All right. Instead of going out to buy $10 lunch or what have you.
And listen, we spend a lot of money out, taking out and going to Burger King and even all of those. It can add up.
It can add up. It can add up. And now remember, there's VAT. There's VAT, which again eats into our savings. It certainly has cut into our ability to save because now everything you buy on the outside, in addition to what you pay, all right, is 7.5%.
Right.
And so I would say even limit your going out to certain restaurants because here again, certain restaurants that have the 15% gratuity, 15% gratuity plus 7.5% VAT, you're paying 22.5%.
And I think you're going into now the other question that I was going to ask you, and I was going to ask you, how can we develop sound spending habits, which is what you're going into right now. So there's some good tips. Continue.
Okay. Well, we have to limit certain things. For example, even with entertainment, a lot of you probably out there have children.
Right.
You can't take them all to the movies. You know
Right.
how expensive
Right.
movies
Ooh.
are, and let alone
Oh,
and
my
when you carry the
God.
children out, they want popcorn
No,
and hot
Mr.
dog.
Delva. I had to resort to something. I tell the kids, no, sorry, can't eat here.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I had to resort to that because it's so much money. And when we're a family of 5, that can easily become $100 outing.
Easily.
Easily.
So sometimes you have to have an outing at home,
Right.
movie night.
And I think these are some of the things we need to recognize, really realize where we're at. Kevin Hart, that crazy comedian, he always used to say you got to learn to stay in your financial lane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have to realize that these are ways in which we can really cut back
Yes.
Yeah, and I think too, even a lot of the stuff that we buy for our kids, they don't have to have it. Why do they have to have a tennis that costs $150 if you don't have the money?
Exactly. And the thing about it, we will spend $150 on a pair of tennis, and then we would frown at the fact of paying $50 for a book.
Right.
Practical, but you made mention of something else. Truly, if some of us were to look at some of the things we have at home, I believe that when we take a look around, even in our homes, some of the things we have, some of those things we spent money on that we really didn't need.
No.
Some of those things are probably in the cupboard, catching dust.
I am always amazed. And listen, I don't want my listeners to get offended in any way. I'm just saying. I am amazed when I see a student or a high school student, I would say, walking around with the latest phone. I'm amazed at that. These phones are $700 plus. How does a child who's in 9th or 10th grade have the latest iPhone? How you just do that? Now, the thing is, don't get me wrong. If you're in a financial position to do it, that is fine. But I know that most of us are not. So I'm trying to figure out, what are we doing?
We're sending the wrong message. We're sending the wrong message. And I would say to a parent who would buy that child a $700 cell phone, instead of doing that, buy them a $100 cell phone and put the $600 in the bank. Remember, that same child has to go to college.
Exactly. So, I mean, I really think as Bahamians, we really do need to. And then there's some of us, everything have to be name brand.
Yes.
They can't have no Fade Glory now. For y'all who like name brand, y'all don't even know what Fade Glory is. But that's Walmart's signature brand, of which I have many items, and so do my children. But I'm only saying they can't buy that.
They can't buy that.
Has to be the polo shirt. Got to be the Tommy Hilfiger. I don't even know all. They got so much trends now. I don't know all of the name brands.
Well, Ms. Bowe, I like to wear Payless shoes, and some Bahamians won't do that.
Right.
Okay.
So I think these are the ways in which we can monitor our spending.
Yes. Learn to live within your means.
Right. And I think that, we don't have enough time for it today. Probably need to really itemize, like you said, in addition to the gas and the grocery, itemize exactly how you're going to spend your entire income.
Yes.
And, I would tell a lady, okay, you want to buy a blouse, right? You go into the store. The blouse is $20. You see it in 3 or 4 colors. Okay, you don't need to spend $80.
Exactly.
Not if you don't have it.
Nope.
Because you're now stretching yourself beyond what you can afford.
Yes.
Buy the one color that you feel you're going to get the most use of and spend $20.
Exactly.
So I just, I think that you really need to sit down and itemize a lot of what you're spending. Sometimes I think the experts say they actually y'all have a plan out that says, okay, you should do 10% on clothing per month.
Yes.
Right, 10% of your income on clothing, and another 10% on entertainment, and 10% off. What? How much on food?
Food, 5%.
5% on food.
5% on food. Well, when you think about the budget, actually, I've developed a personal budget sheet, and for your listening audience, if there are any of them interested, I will make one available to you, and they can come and.
Oh, you all heard that? Okay, awesome.
A personal financial budget sheet to help them make with their budgeting, because savings has to be treated as an expense. Usually, when I do that budget sheet, there's a line item that says savings, because as I said, savings don't happen by accident.
No,
because
you have to be intentional.
If you don't plan to save, you won't save.
Right.
You have to plan. So in that budget sheet, you have to put a line item that says savings. So that means you have to cut out a little bit of food.
Right.
Or cut out a little bit of entertainment. Reduce. You have to reduce. You see, you have got to make a plan to reduce your debt. One of the biggest problems in marriage, sorry not to cut you, is finances. Right. Finances. One of the biggest problems in most marriages is finances. All right. One party either spending too much.
It's too much.
All right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so husband and wife have to be on the same accord.
Yes.
I had a situation, and I had to give an advice to a couple, and this is where a lot of folks get in trouble. Young couple, just got married, and they were able to get a home. They got a mortgage.
Okay.
All right. I went to visit them, and they said to me, or said, well, Mr. Delva, I'm so sorry. We don't have any furniture yet. I said, what are you saying sorry to me? You have a home.
Right.
All right?
Right.
And see, this is where a lot of folks get into problems. They struggle to get the home, and then with that mortgage, that's already probably 40, 50% of all of the income that's coming in. And then what they do to add, I guess, insult to injury, they go to Furniture Plus and borrow money to
Lord,
furnish
$2,000.
all
And you know
all
they're
the rooms.
offering, and they offer all these payment plans and stuff like that.
Yes.
They're encouraging
Yes.
you to get further into that.
Yes, exactly. And we do that to impress our friends or co-workers or what have you. I say to folks, I said to that young couple, you are in your home.
Yes.
All right? You furnish each room piece by piece as you get extra money.
Right.
Don't go and take on more debt.
Right.
All right? To do that.
Yes.
You're just getting yourself into problems.
It reminds me of vacation loans.
Oh.
We spoke about that prior to coming on air. How you just borrow money for vacation? How do you do that?
Okay.
How do you put yourself in debt for something that you're going to have to pay? The vacation is
Exactly.
going to be a week, and you're probably going to pay for that for the next 5 years.
Yes.
Because you can get the longest term possible.
Yes. And
And you know, Mr. Delva may not say it because he is an accountant, right? But we have to realize these financial institutions, listen, you have to use them for what they're worth. You know, they're not your friend. Don't ever think that they're your friend. And they're not going to do things for your financial betterment. So you have to use them for what they're worth. You can't get caught up because they never, a lot of times they won't tell you, you know what? No, don't, we're not going to lend you this money. They're not going to go through that. And there's going to be a bunch of fine print. And they're not going to tell you, you know, when you finish borrowing our money, you know, you can pay us back 3-4 times the amount. They're not going to tell you these things. So you have to really exercise wisdom.
Yes. Before you go into the bank, you need to be knowledgeable. All right? Don't rely on the bank person to tell you about the loan term, the interest rate. All right?
Do your homework.
Do your homework.
Thank God for Google.
Do your homework. You know, you go ahead and you Google an amortization schedule based on how much you hope
And an
to-
amortization schedule is a mortgage. Just
an
break it down
amortization
a bit
schedule
for us.
is a schedule of your loan. For example, if you want to borrow $5,000 and you want to pay no more than, I guess, a certain amount of money, all right, and you go call the bank first and find out what their interest rate is, all right, and once you know what their interest rate is, you can then go ahead and Google an amortization schedule, put in the interest rate, and then based on how much money you want to pay that you can afford, all right, you can put in the term to kind of match that. So you will know, all right, how long you have to repay
You'll
that
have a
money
lot of
back.
information before you even step into the branch.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we really gotta get educated because, you know, if you don't look out for yourself, that no one else is going to, and you can't look towards the corporate financial institutions to really look out for what's best for you. You know, and I think that what you're saying too alludes a lot to what Pastor Cedric Beckles said last week. And one of the things we talked about with especially with debt is, you know, his thing is death isn't a money issue, it's a heart issue because we have a mindset. And, you know, we feel like we have to spend $50 on a blouse as opposed to knowing that, listen, I can only really afford $10. The person who says that, they still in their mind is like, no, I have to spend the 50. And he was saying in our minds, that is almost as important as breathing. So it's really changing the way we think because a lot of times it's our excessive spending habits, I think, and the desire for more and more. Good old greed, eh?
Yes, it's greed. And the thing about it is, when you think about savings, you have to exercise discipline, and that's where the control comes in. Ms. Bowe, you mentioned the fact about borrowing money for vacation, but I know a lot of your listening audience are women, and what I'm going to say might upset a few, but my pet peeve is borrowing money for a wedding.
Oh, yes.
To finance a wedding.
Yes. Yes.
That I have major problems with.
Yeah, and the thing is, you go into the
You're
go into
going
the
into the
union
marriage
with debt.
with debt.
Wow.
With
Yes,
debt.
that is true.
With debt. You can you imagine two persons borrowing money, all right, to finance a lavish wedding, and then you look at them after the wedding, and both individuals are walking.
In an apartment.
And walking into an
Renting an
apartment,
apartment.
renting an apartment, and don't have a car, but they borrowed $10,000-$15,000 to impress.
So again, we come back to this hard issue, eh?
Yes.
And trying to keep up with the Joneses. Listen, y'all, I don't think Kevin Hart is a Christian or nothing, but I think he put it very well. You got to stay in your financial lane.
Yes.
And to me, what does it say? Why can't that person who's going to borrow for the wedding, why can't they just say, you know what, I'm going to go right to the courthouse, or I'm going to go right into church. If you're a member of a church, the church isn't going to charge you. Right. I'm going to go into the church and maybe just have a little party afterwards or have nothing.
Exactly.
Why can't we do that?
Because we want to impress. Learn to live within your means. If you do that, you'll have less stress.
And I think, just as we talk and we converse, I believe that is really the crux of a lot of our issues. Because even I find myself having to, rein myself in. Because, you want this, you want that, you want the next thing. Most of the things we want and we don't need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these companies, they will make you feel as if, how do you make it without this item? You made it? You made it before?
Right.
All these latest things come out. And the thing about it, for example, with cell phones and
Oh,
computers,
my goodness.
every year,
Every year.
And we feel we have to have the latest of everything.
Right. I totally agree with that.
If your iPad is still working, why you have to get the newest, the next version?
Right, the iPad 10.
Yes.
Or whatever they're up to now. I don't know what they're up to now. Yeah.
Or the Samsung 6.
Right. Well, you see the time has flown by as we're actually 35 minutes in. So I know that Mr. Delva is a very busy man today. He's been so kind to take time out of his schedule to come and be with us. So I'm just going to ask you as we end the show for any parting advice, anything that sticks out that you would like to tell the listeners in regards to how we can really, really better our financial situation in 2016.
Well, Ms. Bowe, I would say, again, reiterate to the audience, all right, certainly we have to take control of our finances. Mm-hmm. And in 2016, especially for us in Grand Bahama, where the economy is still rough, and we know a lot of folks are going through a difficult time, I say, number one, make it a goal not to take on any new debt. You see, if
no
new debt.
No matter what.
No
new debt. Short of a crisis or illness.
Yes.
No new debt, people.
No new debt. And make it your aim to reduce the current debt that you have.
Okay.
All right? Reduce it. No new debt. None.
Yeah. And I think it's like that saying, I think Cliff had a book, and people say it, with an elephant, you can eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yes.
So I think with the debt, some people feel a little hopeless. Oh, I'm so deep. How am I ever going to get out? But if you take on no new debt and you just kind of like pinch
away.
at it,
Yes.
chip
away.
Eventually it'll be gone.
Exactly. And also make savings a priority. Okay, I know some folks are having a difficult time saving
5%.
All right, at least 5%.
At least 5%.
And again, if you're one of those individuals who are fortunate where you get a raise every time, that raise, put in savings. Because usually, Ms. Bowe, what happens is every time we get increase in funds, what happens? Our spending, exactly.
Yes. We say, oh, I can get I can get that next shoe that I so wanted.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Save that money.
Yeah.
All right. Save that money. Yes.
Okay. So reduce debt, don't incur any more debt, and make an
savings,
effort to save.
A priority. Make it a priority.
A priority,
Yes.
people, a priority. Well, all right. Thank you so much. I think that information was very, very important. And I see no reason, if we really, really want to better our financial situation and we're serious about it, why we can't take that advice and run with it. So thank you so much for being here with us today. And people, just before I end, I want to remind you of our fast. Okay. We've been doing a fast for the month of January every Thursday. Mr. Delva, you're welcome to join us. Every Thursday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., we have been fasting, asking the Lord to help us keep these financial resolutions that we would have made and to really, really work at bettering our situation in 2016. So for those of you, thank you so much. Okay. For those of you who have joined me in the past, thank you so much for joining me with the fast. And for those of you who wish to join us, Thursday, tomorrow, is the last Thursday in January, so that will be the conclusion of the fast, and you can decide what fast is best for you. I know that some of you have physical limitations, so we don't want you to make yourself ill or endanger your health. But whatever you can do, join me tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, I would like to thank Mr. Delva for all of that great advice that he gave us. And I would like to say to you, listening audience, please embrace it. You know, sometimes God speaks to us in different ways, and this may have been God's way of speaking through him today to really encourage you to better your financial situation. So I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank Simply the Best for sponsoring the show. And until next week, people, same time, same place. Blessings to you all. Blessings.